The Kremlin has responded to President Trump's remarks about being very angry with Russian President Vladimir Putin. In an interview this weekend with NBC News' Kristen Welker, Trump threatened to impose secondary tariffs on Russian oil if Putin doesn't cooperate in working toward a peace deal with Ukraine.
And the way the Kremlin is responding is interesting. You have spokesperson Dmitry Peskov addressing the comments, saying that some of the wording from the interview was paraphrased rather than a direct quote. CNN's Natasha Bertrand is live for us at the Pentagon. Natasha, what else did the Kremlin say?
Well, President Trump apparently told NBC over the weekend that he was very angry with Vladimir Putin because of Putin's suggestion that President Zelensky of Ukraine is not a legitimate leader and that perhaps a, quote, temporary administration should take over Ukraine while Russia and the U.S. negotiate some kind of ceasefire deal. Well, in response to that, the Kremlin is now saying that the Russians continue to work on this issue with the Americans. They said, first of all, on building our bilateral relations, which suffered enormous damage during the previous administration. We are also working on implementing some ideas related to the Ukrainian settlement, but Dmitry Peskov, the Russian spokesperson, he said that work is underway, and so far there are no specifics that we would have to inform you about. Now, this does mark a shift in President Trump's rhetoric towards the Russians. He had previously been much more willing to criticize President Zelensky, who he himself actually said in recent weeks and months was a dictator because President Zelensky had not held elections during wartime, which is actually prohibited, of course, by Ukraine's constitution. And so the fact now that he is turning this around on Vladimir Putin and actually threatening to implement new tariffs on Russian oil, he also told NBC that he could implement any moment now 25 to 50% tariffs on Russian oil, as well as secondary tariffs on countries that buy Russian oil, suggests that perhaps President Trump is getting a little bit frustrated with the Russians, because just last week we saw, of course, the White House announce that there was going to be some kind of ceasefire deal in the Black Sea, something that they believed the Russians had agreed to. But of course, just hours later, the Russians came out and said that they were going to be implementing conditions of their own on such a Black Sea ceasefire deal. They want sanctions lifted first, for example, whereas the Ukrainians are agreeing, they say right now, to a full ceasefire deal. So it is the Russians at this point who are being more difficult to work with on this, something that the president appears now to be frustrated by. But he did say that there is going to be potentially a call with Vladimir Putin this week, though the Kremlin did not say that that has been scheduled yet.
Natasha Bertrand live at the Pentagon for us. Thank you so much.